So, I was going to make my first book reviews on the Halo novels, but then I was an idiot and lent them to my sister just a week before another lockdown happened. So, screw it, I'm going to stop postponing this channel launch. I'll be doing a different book series I grew up with. Nah, I gotta learn more about Bond if I'm going to do that one. Nope. Far better views than me have drained those suckers dry. Yeah, no. With the world the way it is right now, I don't need another thing that'll make me want to kill myself. I need a standalone book series that I grew up with, that barely anybody talks about, but also isn't eternally depressing.
That'll do.
So, yeah. Barely anybody talks about this series. I browsed YouTube for a while, seeing if any big channels had discussed it, and no, not a single video discussing these novels has over 100 views. I don't know whether to attribute this to it being incredibly underground, or if book reviews on YouTube just don't exist outside people like the Dom. So, H.I.V.E. It stands for the Higher Institute of Villainous Education. Now, back when I was in Year 7, in my first year of Comprehensive, for the Americans out there, that's 6th grade, I was given this novel for my English class. I can't quite remember why, if it was for book club, or if it was for a school project, or if they just liked giving out random books, but yeah, I have a pretty hazy memory of that time in my life. I loved this book series. I'd reread it a lot, and it was one of the book series in which, as a kid, I'd actually envisioned myself in the world as like a side character. Okay, am I alone in doing that, or was that something all kids did? Anyway, I've not reread the entire series in preparation for these videos. I'm taking each book one by one, though I do have decent memories of plot points and twists that happen later. I wanted to approach this mostly blind, and to try and judge the book on its own merits. With all that preamble, let's get to H.I.V.E. So, what actually happens in this novel? Well, to put it simply, H.I.V.E. is a secret school that trains Bond villains. You probably could have gotten that from the title. The plot focuses on about 5 of the students to varying levels, as well as the headmaster of the school. Aside from these 5 and one comic relief character, their classmates are barely mentioned except for group actions. I should probably introduce them, shouldn't I? I'll do my best to use some visual aids. These are either literally how I envisioned them as a kid, or they're just a roughly equivalent character that I pulled up. So the main character is Otto Malpence, though as a kid my brain always inserted an H, so I always thought of him as Malfence. I'm weird like that. He's essentially Matilda, but on steroids. He grew up in an orphanage and is effectively a cartoon genius. He self-taught himself to not just to read, but basically everything. It's described at one point that he took apart a mobile phone, seemingly understood how each part worked, then he put it back together better than ever. And when I say better than ever, I don't mean that it got clearer signal or its battery was more efficient. No. The thing stopped charging its owner for calls. I'm still not entirely sure how that works, but amusingly, it's the most outlandish thing he does in this novel, and that includes several feats of technological wizardry. The secondary character is Wing Fanchu. He's essentially a kid ninja, very athletically gifted and handy in a scrap, and mostly quiet. It's heavily hinted at that he's got a tragic backstory, but not much is elaborated on in this novel, as this one's told entirely from Otto's perspective, aside from a few cutaways to the school's principal. Next is the other kid genius, Laura Brand, a Scottish girl who apparently hacked a spy plane just to see if other girls in her school were gossiping about her. Now, her most notable trait is her empathy. Several times in the novel, she's actually shown going out of her way to help others, even at one point putting herself and friends at risk just to protect an AI. The other girl in the group is Shelby Trinity, she's just teenage Catwoman. She's first introduced as a stuck-up valley girl, they even specifically use that term, but roughly halfway in it's revealed that she is the world-renowned thief known as the Wraith. She apparently has unparalleled stealth abilities, and she claims at one point to have snuck into the Louvre. Finally, the character who at first seems like a side character, but soon becomes much more important is... His name is Nigel Darkdoom. For the record, the characters in the book act shocked at how ridiculous this name is. Now, he's the son of one of the aforementioned Bond villains, but is the classic case of being awkward and not seeming to live up to people's expectations. He's essentially this book's Neville Longbottom. It's actually really obvious that the writer was copying homework, because it's not just that he's awkward and quiet and not good at anything, but the only thing he's good at is this school's equivalent of herbology. Yeah, you're going to hear a lot of callbacks to Harry Potter, because it's very clear that the writer either had recently watched Harry Potter, or he just assumed, let's do Harry Potter things, because Harry Potter sold like brownies at Glastonbury. You know how in the video game industry, you can clearly see the huge trends of developers chasing after a popular game? Call of Duty, Minecraft, Amnesia, Five Nights at Freddy's. Harry Potter was the literary equivalent, and I'm not sure if Mark Walden, the writer, was either not realising how many notes he was taking from Rowling, or if he perhaps did it deliberately as just kind of a way of saying, yeah, I know, trust me. Just so I can get it out of the way. Secret school that teaches the next generation of a secret society that the world is vaguely aware exists, but not as much as they realistically should. Main character has a connection to the main villain that is explored in future novels. Side character is the son of very talented and almost famous people, but is meek and useless except for having green fingers and a ridiculous lack of health and safety. Also, one of the teachers is a cat. I'm not joking about that health and safety part, by the way. One of the older students makes a remark that they're not likely to lose their right hands in their first year. And in fairness, it does work better here than in Hogwarts, because, well, evil. Speaking of evil, the last mainish character, Dr. Nero, the principal of H.I.V.E, a man of nebulous age who, it is stated, does care for his students, but is also more than happy for one of his students to have their wrists broken as a punishment. So these are the characters, but what exactly happens in these 300 pages? Well, to put it simply, the characters are brought to the island by being knocked out and effectively kidnapped, though it is stated that their parents are asked first. The characters we follow are all part of the Alpha stream. Now this is effectively the Gryffindor of this school, being described as the natural leaders of evil. The other streams are henchmen, technical, and political financial. As in political / financial. It's one stream for both of those things. The immediate problem that comes up is why all these characters are in the Alpha stream to begin with. Now, Otto and Wing I can at least understand. They are both presented as intelligent and lateral thinking enough, with charisma to spare, but Laura very much seems like she'd be in technical. And while Shelby isn't stupid, I don't see how a jewel thief is a leader of tomorrow. And that's before we get to Franz. I didn't mention him. Franz is the token fat character. That is all he does. He is there for fat jokes, often wondering,
I wonder what's for dinner.
And the only reference that is ever made to his competency is an offhand line that he is incredibly talented at distributing money through simulated shell companies in their economics classes. I only bring it up because, well, there is a financial stream. I get that you want to have a varied group of characters, but just have them be in different streams. It's not like that would cause that much of a plot problem, but I digress. Essentially, the main four characters soon realise that, well, none of them particularly want to be there. Wing and Laura miss their homes and families, and Otto and Shelby mostly just hate being confined in one location and being told what to do. And I actually really like this. When you're making characters that are by design morally dubious, it's good to have not all of them have the generic reasoning of, oh, I miss my family. And the fact that the main character is one of the ones to have a more egotistical reasoning is quite bold. The events of the book is mostly just introductions to the school and then their breakout attempt, with the climax of the book being a sudden twist into a massive boss fight. Basically, just before they attempt their escape, Nigel shows the main characters a small mutant Venus flytrap he's genetically created that eats worms. Her name is Violet. And as they're starting up their attempt, it shortly swaps to his perspective as he worries about the fact that she's been refusing his earthworms after she accidentally cut his finger and got a taste of his blood. The heist regularly cuts to the hydroponics teacher worrying over how her facility is malfunctioning, a side effect of their escape attempt, and that there are odd noises coming from outside her office. And then cut to the end of the heist, when they've been caught, Nero's had a semi-heart-to-heart with them about what were you even going back to? And suddenly, well, Violet bursts from the roof of the hydroponics greenhouse, now the size of a building, as opposed to her original, flytrap size. Otto manages to rig up a makeshift explosive to essentially cause a cave-in of the rocks above Violet, and then also has to plant the explosive because everyone else at that point had been incapacitated fighting her lashing vines. All is mostly well, the day is saved, and the two boys, despite having an opportunity to escape, stick around. I should point out that the two genders were split up after being caught, so Laura and Shelby were busy defending the other students from Violet's vines, which had spread through the vents. They choose to say half due to Nero's point from earlier, and half due to some reveals that happened regarding Wing's backstory and Nero apparently being connected. I'll get to that when I do the sequel, as it's addressed there more fully, but suffice to say, when I first read this, Nero was having very big "I am your father" flags waved. There's honestly not much to this novel, to be honest. It's mostly just an introduction to the world of Hive. Lots of plot threads are dangled, lots of things set up, but really there's not much here. Everything I've told you is all the stuff that's, only relevant to this book, but there's a lot of extra stuff that is just, sprinkled in there to sort of like lead into things in the later books, and I'll get to them when that comes up so that it's more easy to sum up. So, do I recommend this book? Even with it mostly just being an introduction to the series? Absolutely. And it is completely saved by its writing. Here, let me just read you a few excerpts. What Franz did not realise was that his father was not just a chocolate magnate, but also one of the most powerful criminal masterminds in all of Europe. Franz was clearly going to be kept as far away from the chocolate side of the business as possible. Actually, it would probably be best to just keeping him away from chocolate as possible, full stop. See that this doesn't happen again. I'd hate to have to take disciplinary measures. Nero paused. I don't like to see young lives wasted. Also, I didn't think he was talking about missed educational opportunities. Yeah, this book's chock full of snark humour like that, and I'm a sucker for it. There's hardly any chapter sections that don't end in some sort of dry snark or humorous jab. It's brilliant. So, that was Hive, the Higher Institute of Villainous Education. A very simple but perfectly functional introduction to this world. So, please join me again next time as I dive into the Overlord Protocol.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please, if you enjoyed this, consider subscribing for more. Or if you want to listen to my dulcet tones more often, do check out my Twitch. I stream there most nights of the week at 11 PM UK time, and I'd love to have you. Or you could join my Discord, which will be linked in the description. Thank you very much.